There is at least one U.S. platform that might benefit big time if TikTok goes dark. That was our mystery chart today. Let's bring in Mark Mahaney. He's Senior Managing Director and Head of Evercore ISI's Internet Research Team. And just to build the drama, Mark, before we reveal this name, there is this sense online that people don't, they say, well, Meta lobbied to ban TikTok, so we don't want to go use Meta's platforms and give it to them. So they're kind of like, yeah, we'll just go use this Chinese thing.
Well, my guess is that 100 million plus people in the U.S. who use TikTok are going to go where they can find the content that they love on TikTok. And you'll find a lot of that content right on Reels or in YouTube Shorts and sometimes on Snap. And so that's my guess as to where those users will go. We hosted a panel on this topic earlier this week. We think there will be a Supreme Court order tomorrow morning, just a short order. Our guess is that the majority of the court is going to vote to uphold the law. Therefore, it goes into effect on the 19th. And I don't think that TikTok goes dark on that day, but I think the service is going to degrade over time because it'll be removed from the app stores and upgrades won't be allowed. So anyway, we think that's it's a bit of a shocking event, over the last couple of months, shocking to investors. But this has been, coming down the path for a long time. It's the law of the land, and I think the Supreme Court's going to uphold it. That's our best guess.
And so it's interesting that you say, because as we know, then the Apples and the Googles of the world, if this comes down, are going to have to back away from it immediately. So it may not be that the app literally goes dark. People might still be able to use it.
That's my best guess, but I'm not sure. I feel more confidence in predicting what the Supreme Court's going to do, and I'm not that confident in that, but reasonably confident. The law was really, this was not quick legislation, and this wasn't something that this legislation had very strong bipartisan support. And then the arguments that TikTok was making in front of the Supreme Court, I don't think were convincing. They were arguing that Chinese assets should have freedom of speech rights in the U.S., and I don't think that convinced most of the Supreme Court justices. Yeah, so I think you're going to get 6 or 7 that are going to vote to uphold the law, and that's all you need.
And again, perhaps narrowly, and perhaps on the simple issue of the Chinese collection of this U.S. user data, so that they don't have to wade into kind of content moderation practices for apps more broadly. Anyway, let's say this happens. I mean, you do think Snap could be one of the bigger beneficiaries. It's probably one not being as much talked about right now. Why would you look in that direction?
Well, I'll give you 2 reasons. One is it depends on where the users go. So if you loved certain types of content on TikTok, you want to follow that content on other platforms. Where is that content? I think a lot of people will go to Instagram Reels. I think a lot of people will go to YouTube Shorts, and some will go to Snap for that content. We did check to see where the top content that's being followed on viewed on TikTok goes, and you can find a lot of it on those other platforms. That's the first thing. And then the second thing is, well, what are advertisers going to want to do? And advertisers are on TikTok for reach and frequency, and for a particular type of ad format, which is short form video ad format. So that kind of limits where the dollars are going to go. They're not going to go to search budgets, but they're going to go to those platforms. Our guess is that 60-70% of those TikTok ad budgets will go to a Meta, 20-30% will go to a YouTube, and maybe 10% will go to Snap. That sounds like a small percentage, but for Snap, given that its revenue base is so much lower, that 10% could mean an incremental 10 to 15% revenue to Snap. That's why it could be a big beneficiary.
Yeah, and you're still, correct me if I'm wrong, you don't have an overweight on the name. I think you're still kind of market neutral on it. But again, I take your point about kind of the bigger beta really going to that name versus some of the others.